We're going to land together in this moment. I just want you to soften your gaze or close your eyes, whatever you feel comfortable doing. So, just feeling your sit bones heavy, your feet grounded on the surface, the earth beneath you. Inhaling in through the nose for 4, and exhaling out through the mouth for 6. One hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Just breathing in a soft rose gold light, Magdalene's devotion, courage, and truth. And on your next exhale, exhaling any shame, doubt, or need to be understood or absolutely right. Inhale, I am here. And exhale, I am safe to remember. When you're ready, gently coming back to the room and coming with us into her story, Mary Magdalene.
Amazing. So we are live. Welcome everybody to the Mystic Misfit Society show. Welcome to episode 2. We're so excited for this one.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I can see we have people in the audience. So hello if you're joining us live. Let us open the chat. Feel free to drop any question, comment, observation. We want these episodes to be like interactions with you guys. As you know, we're talking about Mary Magdalene because she's making a huge comeback, right? Her
She's definitely
energy is everywhere.
She is definitely, yeah. I feel like every time I turn on Instagram, there's a new something about her.
Always, yeah. I It's interesting because we were talking about this right before we went live, and we both come from a Catholic background. In my case, I actually never heard about Mary Magdalene during my upbringing. Like the Catholic uh like path or tradition is that you do your communion when you're like around 10 or 11 years old. Then you do like there's like different rituals, if you want to call them like that you do as a Catholic. And for that, you do a lot of preparation. You study the Bible. I never heard of Mary Magdalene. I mean, I knew her name somehow, but I had no idea about who she was until I watched The Chosen last year, actually. And I just felt such a deep connection with her character. I did not know why, but now I know. I don't know, but how about you? Like, did you grow up knowing about her?
I grew up knowing what the Catholic Church made her, and even though they corrected it in 1969, I feel like she's still the prostitute. That's what I grew up. And also, like, coming from Portugal, like, that's where my family's from, and it being that we were 7 kilometers from Fatima, which is where the kids saw Mary, the mother of Christ, that it was like so ingrained on like the focusing on this like out of reach of virgin mother, right? So I feel like it was more, all of my upbringing was about that Mary and not the one that was vilified by the church.
Yeah. Interesting. So today we're gonna be talking about who she really is, what we've learned about her, because neither of us are scholars, but we do share a passion for her, for what she represented, and we're both always learning and researching. Because I think we feel called, right, somehow, to really clean her image. For me, really, her image became clear when I started watching The Chosen. And in The Chosen, she is still portrayed as a sinner who is saved by Jesus. But I don't know, have you watched The Chosen?
I haven't actually.
No way. Well, in the whole series starts with her. Like she's as a child. So she's the first character to be portrayed in the whole show. First as a child, then as a woman who was possessed and who's saved by Jesus. And the whole episode is about this, the first episode. And then Jesus, the last scene of the episode, he calls her by her name, Mary. And that's when she is saved, right? So it's very interesting that even though the show focuses on the Orthodox tradition, or like the traditional story that we know of Jesus as God, the Savior, salvation, she is the first character. So the producers or the people who wrote the story for the show knew. They
Yeah.
knew something about her, because why would she be portrayed? Why would she be the first character to appear there, right?
Yeah, that's so interesting. But I mean, she was the first character to see Christ after the resurrection. Yeah.
Exactly. She was the
Character. I
first
just
character
called
to
her a
see.
character. She's not a character. She's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but that's the thing, right? And whether they did that consciously or unconsciously, there is something in every one of us, in each of us, that is starting to remember, right?
Hmm.
That spark, that divine spark of wisdom of Sophia, that
Yes.
Sophia left in us for
Mm.
us to awaken and to remember. So I think it's just a beautiful way of connecting everything together, right?
Yeah, it is very beautiful.
Yeah, but we all grew up knowing Mary Magdalene as the sinner, as the repentant sinner who needed to be saved and forgiven, the sinful woman, and also the misconception of a prostitute identity. Once I knew more about Mary Magdalene through The Chosen, but once I heard this, like she was a sinner, she was possessed, she was a prostitute, there was something in
Mm.
me that was completely triggered and knew that this couldn't be true. But it wasn't until I read the Gospel of Mary for the first time that I
Yes.
made this I had this breakthrough, this association about these were actually never sins. They were
Mm.
just right, because she talks about the powers, the seven powers of the wrath, which are what religion would call the deadly sins,
Since, yeah, I
right?
would say yes. Or in the there's a Gnostic text that talks about the seven powers of the Archon, like the Yaldabaoth as well, which is interesting
The
because, like,
seven.
when you expand your awareness and you look at all these texts, there's so many aspects that overlap and interconnect. And when you're just looking at the canon and it's like literally saying it's the demons, that's all you see, right? But I have yet to find one other book that talks about the seven powers that calls them demons, or that says that Mary has quote unquote demons. So it's interesting how, like, you're really limiting yourself to that definition.
Yeah. I watched a video about it the other day, actually, and I think I shared it in the community about
Yes.
according to the Gnostics, the seven dimensions that the soul has to go through in order to really get back to
Mm.
source,
Hmm.
which resembles a lot what she mentions in her gospel, right?
It does.
Let me
Yes.
let me
Yeah.
let me see if I can bring up exactly what she says, like maybe a fragment of this, and we can share with people, and we can maybe talk about it a little bit. So let me see. Gospel of Mary. Well, there's I'm gonna read a summary that I just found here online. It's not
Yeah.
what she says in the gospel, but it would be cool for people listening or watching to really see and understand what are we talking about. So in the Gospel of Mary, after the soul has overcome ignorance, it encounters the fourth power, which manifests in seven forms. These forms
Mm.
are described as follows: darkness, which represents ignorance and the absence of knowledge.
Hmm.
Then there's number two is desire, which actually this is the one that symbolizes the cravings and attachments that bind the soul to the material world. The third one is ignorance, the lack of understanding and awareness of spiritual truths. The fourth one is the seal for death, a fixation on morality and the fear of death that can hinder spiritual progress. The fifth one is the kingdom of the flesh, the physical realm and its temptations that distract from spiritual pursuits. The sixth one is foolish wisdom of the flesh, the misguided beliefs and understandings that arise from purely materialistic perspective. And the seventh one is the wisdom of the wrathful person, a distorted form of wisdom that is driven by anger and vengeance. So it says here that these are not merely obstacles, they represent the internal struggles that individuals face on their spiritual journeys, on the spiral that we like to call, right?
Yes. I love calling it the spiral. Yeah.
And Mary emphasizes that overcoming these powers is essential for achieving spiritual liberation and understanding one's true nature. I think this is all amazing, but I think we should go back to before all of this. And we don't even know if I mean, there's more chances that she didn't write this, just like all the other
Yeah.
gospels that weren't written directly by the
They were
apostles.
not.
Yeah. But let's go back a little bit further to who Mary really was. And I would love to hear from you, like from your research, from books you've read, and also from your own gnosis,
Mm.
what you've learned about Mary Magdalene, who she really was.
I mean, what we're told, and I guess what you uncover is that she was a woman whose name was actually Mary of Magdala, I think was.
Miriam of Magdala, yeah.
Yeah, and she was from a town of on the Sea of Galilee. And she's ends up being the disciple of Christ. I have also read, I don't know if you've ever read Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. I know I've talked to you about it. I know you're reading like a million books at the same time. Same, always.
Yeah.
But it was very enlightening to see that in this book, it's like a channeling from the grandmother of Jesus. And in this book, she was born on the same day as Christ. She's born on the same day.
Wow.
He's born in this book. Let's say they don't say the exact amount of hours, but it basically says that, let's say he's born 5 hours after sunset. And she on that same day is born 5 hours after sunrise or something is what they said. Like it was like they were mirrors of each other born on the same day.
That's
And
beautiful.
they grow up together, like always like this, if you quote unquote sexual tension, it sounds like. And they eventually get married in this book. And I've seen people talk about this. I've not felt called to talk about it on my account, but talking about the fact that when he's turning the water into wine in the canon, that's actually his wedding. And in this book, it does say that, but it also says that it's not just his wedding because they did a tandem wedding. And it's interesting if we're going a step deeper, because realizing that she was this feminine mirror of Christ. And in this book also, every apostle has a feminine counterpart. So there's 24
Mm.
main apostles and 12 of them are men and 12 of them are female. It's like that twin flame energy, if you will, where they are like perfect mirrors of each other and each of them has like found their wholeness through each other.
So interesting. And I mean, it makes sense because if we think of Christ, he was all about order, balance. And why
Mm,
would he choose just 12 men without their counterpart, right? Because we know that in order for the soul to ascend, there needs to be a balance between the masculine and the feminine, right? So why would he
mhm,
just choose male apostles
mhm.
without their other half to be in wholeness, right?
Yeah.
So it does make sense. And the book that I'm reading, that it's called, I can't remember. I sent it to you. Let me just see if I have the script. The Mary
I
Magdalene's
think it's
Journey or
called the
something like that.
Revealed. Oh no, it might be Journey. Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah. And we'll link the books in the show notes in case anyone is interested in checking them out. But in this one, it also mentions that they grew up together, that they knew each other from like
Yes.
childhood, that Miriam's family was well off, that they were actually
Mm,
she came from a wealthy family. And actually, Yeshua's family was not poor as we have been traditionally told. Like his father
yeah.
was a carpenter as well, I think. And Yeshua learned from him, but he had a lot of influence and connections in the Jewish community. So that made his family, like Yeshua's family, also kind of like well known and well connected. So
Mm,
they didn't grow he didn't grow up as poor, but Mary's
yeah.
family was definitely wealthier, and they fell in love from a very, very young age. But of course, back then, you know that it was a tradition that the father of the family would arrange the wedding for his daughters, right?
Mm,
But Miriam was a rebellious woman. She was smarter. She was more independent. She was wisdom embodied, right? So, of
yeah.
course, she didn't follow the traditional path that her father had for her. She had brothers and sisters, and her mom was very supportive. Her mom always supported her, and she supported her through her mission with Yeshua. And even after Yeshua was killed and Miriam had to migrate to Europe, she's always supported by her mom, and we can talk about this later.
Yeah.
But basically, she was kind of like disowned by her dad. She was seen
Mm,
as shameful for not following the Jewish tradition and for going with Yeshua in his missions, because also what Yeshua was teaching was seen as something that was heretical and blasphemous because it was completely different from the law. of Moses that they were all adhering to. And then she does talk about the missing years. So basically, before this, I'm going to give you guys some context. So this book is also supposed to be a channel. There's a couple that channeled Mary Magdalene's soul. Actually, Mary Magdalene's and Yeshua. So they both come to them and they tell them this whole beautiful story, and it's beautifully narrated. It talks about the soul. It talks about the masculine and the feminine. It talks about their story as well, what happened afterwards. So it's really, really interesting in case anyone wants to check it out. Again, we cannot say they're trusted sources, but
take what resonates.
Exactly. And when you read it, there's something in me that just knows, it feels like the truth. So I'm taking what resonates. So yeah, anyways, she talks about the missing years of Yeshua, and he, according to this book, he did go east, and he did go and study with like Eastern spiritual gurus and learned all about meditation and healing and all of these practices that he brought back into his ministry, which is very interesting, right? So that's like a little bit of the background story that she gives there of how they met, how they grew up, how they fell in love, and that they were always in love. And she was indeed the closest person to him. It also talks about how they both studied with the Essenes. They spent some time with the Essenes. Yeah.
That's the same thing in this book. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it was just for like a short period of time, and there were a lot of things that did not resonate from the Essenes with Yeshua's teachings, but they did apply a lot of the Essenes teachings into their own ministry and teachings, especially the purification ways of cleaning themselves.
It's interesting that you bring up the Essenes, because in this book it's different. Like, he was like part of the Essenes community, but the Essenes community in this book is essentially a community of seekers. So they send their initiates off to different traditions and religions across the world to learn from them and do these initiations, and then come back and teach and so I found that really interesting, because in that book, and I also found it really interesting because Mary Magdalene in that particular book goes off to Egypt and does her initiations there first with the women. And then he's off I think he might have been in India first. And then when he comes back, he then goes to Egypt, and she's actually the one like guiding him through this like death and rebirth initiation. So it also like mirrors the fact that it wasn't that like one was better than the other, but they were like supporting each other through their ascension.
That's very interesting as well. But here's the thing, right? Again, there's some contradictions. There's some things that are the same. Again, as you were saying before, you have to take what resonates. But the truth is that there is so much more to her and to Yeshua that has not been told, that has not been shared with us. And I feel it's for a reason. Like, they didn't want us to see this truth for a reason.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat about astrology and the 7 major planets, which I had a lot of knowings come through at the beginning around the 7 deadly sins, around Mary Magdalene, and like the 7 demons, if you will, the 7 powers, and it being then somehow connected to the planets, right? Like, and also our chakras, and if that's where our like 7 powers or deadly sins that we have to move through to ascend, right? Like, the root chakra being a very de-centered center, right? That is your center of survival. It's your fight or flight, right? And then you're moving up through the rest of them, that being also very connected to the planets and connected to the fact that the planets in our chakra, in our internal systems, mirror each other. We are a mirror of the cosmos. The question that's being asked is around, do we find it interesting that in astrology, there are 7 major planets, right? So there's 7 major planets. And then in Mary, there's the 7 demons to overcome. And do we think that overcoming the planet could bring you enlightenment? And I totally agree with that, because to me, and how I've been shown things, is like the 7 chakras within us are also the 7 planetary energies. Like, we mirror the cosmos. And just if you look at we mirror the divinity within us. And so if you look at what you said in like that first layer being the 3D, that's literally the root chakra. right? It's
Yeah.
literally, it's the fight or flight center. So us being the mirrors of those energies. And yes, if you were, and this is why it's not about idolizing astrology. It's not about idolizing different goddesses that represent these aspects, but it's about using them as archetypes and then healing those pieces of yourself. So I totally think
Yeah.
that if we overcome and we bring forth the energy like into our awareness of these planets and heal these aspects of ourselves, that is part of the ascension process. And people don't call it that sometimes, but again, it's like take what resonates with you, because somebody who resonates with astrology can do so while paying attention to the different energies from these planets, but somebody who resonates with witchcraft and like different goddesses can do the same thing by choosing a goddess that has those same kinds of aspects that they're bringing forward within themselves to heal.
Yeah, I totally
Hopefully.
agree with what you said. That's basically what her gospel says is like you need to heal these layers, all these levels, whether you call them chakras or the other planets in astrology, to really ascend and go back to source. I know you have read and studied a lot when it comes to Sophia, which is wisdom embodied, the feminine phase of God. And this is something that a lot of mystics said that Miriam of Magdala represented as well. So, do you want to share a little bit of what you've learned about Sophia, and maybe like give us a little context on the story of how she fell and she created the demiurge, and that's how these different layers were
Mm.
created?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So Sophia is I guess how you want to look at it in the Gnostic sense, because I think all traditions have different names for these things. And anytime I do a video on Sophia or something like that, someone's like, "No, it's actually this," but it's all labels, right? We don't.
The Shatnika, right?
Yes. So essentially, or we go like back to Greek mythology, where it's like just Mother Earth, right? I'm just going to quickly do a detour in that Greek mythology. It's Earth as the feminine aspect of God and Uranus as masculine. But anyways, the point is she's like this first, essentially the first aspect, this first feminine aspect of God. So there's the Father, which in these texts it doesn't really talk about. It's like the unnamed source. And then there's Sophia. And Sophia then decides on a whim that she wants to create, and she does so without her counterpart, which I think is a really important thing that we need to think about, because I am totally for feminism. I think we need to bring back the feminine. I think in the aspect of the fact that we've been so far down the patriarchy, we need to bring back this, like heavily lean into the feminine. But at the end of the day, it's about the union, right? So we can't be like, okay, I'm going
Yeah,
to eradicate patriarchy and put in it matriarchy. We need to put in place
we need
this
both.
beautiful union. And so this also teaches us the other side of things, because in this story, it's a female. It's a Sophia who decides, I'm going to create, and I'm not going to do it with my counterpart. And so she then creates this child that's Yaldabaoth, who's this false ruler, and he's born blind because it was this miscreation, the first sin, if you will. And then he creates this prison world that we now live in. And yeah, it's kind of interesting, but she is also wisdom, because then he creates us as humans and we're not breathing. So when he creates Adam, Adam is lifeless. He's made of clay and lifeless. And so Sophia, having mercy on what he's created, breathes the divine spark into Adam. So it
The
is
Ruach.
actually quite, yes. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. And that being that she is that wisdom, and she's like the spark that lives within us. She's like the Gnosis. And she does come down when she realizes that we are trapped in this prison, which we still remain trapped in this prison matrix, whatever we want to call it. And she's the one in these Gnostic texts and the Nag Hammadi, like Secret Book of John and The Nature of the Rulers, have very similar stories. And she comes down and is essentially, she comes down as Eve in one of them. I can't remember which one it is. And she tries to wake up Adam. And when she has to flee, she then comes in as a serpent. So, which, and you think about the yoga, the Shakti and the Shiva, that Shakti is literally a serpent energy. It's a female serpent. And yet we're so afraid of her in the canon.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful paradox, right? That Sophia just decided not out of, I don't think she did it out of like evilness, but she
Mm.
just decided to create on her own without her counterpart, and it
Yeah.
it resulted in Yaldabaoth, or the Demiurge. You can also call him
Demiurge,
the
yeah.
Demiurge, who created this like matrix. We're living it, but at the same time, it's thanks to her that breathed life into us and gave us that divine spark so that we could one day remember and again come back and go back into the source of all creation. So it's such a beautiful paradox that
It is beautiful.
she kind of not fucked us over, but kind of, but then she's also saving us.
No, but I also feel like she's like the first beautiful example of what actual repentance is supposed to look like, right? Because she did this without her counterpart. She messed up and then she gave us a way out, right? She was like, how do I solve what it's okay. Instead of shaming herself, which she could have done, she gave us back this spark of gnosis, this spark of remembering who we were.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I think that Mary Magdalene's, again, I was going to say character, but she's not a character. Her soul, her spirit, her energy is awakening. Is awakening in so many of us because we have that divine spark and what Sophia gave us. Now it's just waking up in all of us. That's why we all feel so connected to her. And every time I talk about Mary Magdalene on social media, people are just moved.
Yeah.
Right? In a world that is very masculine, where the feminine is suppressed, where the feminine is seen as weakness, we've realized that actually, no, we need, as we were saying before, we need that balance in order for there to be, for everything to be in flow, right? For creation to be in flow, there needs to be this balance. And that's why the divine feminine is making a comeback, and why so many people, not only female, but like male, are also being drawn to these like inner mysteries, right? The unity of masculine and feminine in the Christ path.
Well, this is juicy. We have here we have here a lovely astrologist that's like deep into I don't study asteroids. So she does. She's here to like guide this, I feel.
Love that.
She says she's found that in astrology right now, the feminine asteroids have really been coming forward, which she believes is the balance of the masculine of the major planets, which was, that's beautiful. Asteroids, she's saying like Lilith, Ceres, Pallas, Athena, many more. So that's very interesting, right? I think that our internal world mirrors the cosmos. I've always
as within, so without.
Yes, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And then why don't we just stop being a little less afraid of astrology on that note? And instead, let's just meet it where it's at, Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that threatens control, that threatens the patriarchy, I feel is just always going to be suppressed or demonized. But the more people wake up, the more people remember, the less and less, I guess, it's going to be like the patriarchy and the people that have been in control and power and dominating, the less influence they're going to have over our souls that are starting to remember.
The thing is, we didn't get to this point of like severe oppression out of nowhere, right? Like it starts with a seed, just like the good starts with a seed of good that we keep growing, we keep nurturing, and it's the same thing. So we really have to become less discouraged and just go for nurturing this seed, because over time we'll look back and we won't even remember. And that's what I've said a lot of times is like a lot of people are like, oh, well, we're living in Satan's little season. And have you heard that expression where this is like the 1,000 years or he's been like let out of jail? And that we're supposed to, so like they feel so oppressed by this, but the reality of it is, I don't even know where I was going off on this train of thought, because I feel like that's how my gnosis comes in. Something came through. Maybe I'll come back to it.
Let it come.
I know it like comes through, and then I try to put it into human words sometimes, and it's like, nope. Yeah, that's so weird. Nope, but I'm used to that.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about so let's talk about the crucifixion.
Let's talk about witchcraft.
And what happened to Mary Magdalene? Because I'm reading the Gospels, right? And I've read the resurrection and the crucifixion and resurrection 4 times already, because it's in the 4 main Gospels. They don't all agree on who was the first to see Yeshua resurrected, which is very interesting. But my question is then, the Gospels continue, and then you have the Pentecost, and all of these events that
Mm-hmm.
happened afterwards, and then you have Saul, which is, I had no idea that Saul was Paul again, but they love changing names there, right? They love changing names
They do.
in the in the Bible. Anyways,
They
and then
love it.
it's all about his mission, and then and Peter's mission, and where's Mary after all of this? Where did she go?
Do we want the
Have you read
controversial
any?
take, or do we want
We always
the
want a controversial take. We're the Mystic Misfits. We're meant to be controversial.
right? I mean, the very like controversial, but also like physical data that backs it up is that she then fled to a cave in France, right? Because there's a skull in France that you can go that is supposedly her skull. When the data that's been done on it, it's not old enough to be her skull. But then I go and I read this Grandmother of Jesus book, and the grandmother of Jesus, when he's born, is 600 because she's done all these initiative rites and practices. It sounds like something to do with renewal of your energy centers every night. And for those of you that want to try and figure out how to live 600 years, going down that rabbit hole, I haven't done it. I'm just trying to survive day by day sometimes. But she was 600 years old, which then makes me think like if this is accurate and they were living in this group they were Essenes, but not in the way we think Essenes are, and that they're like very strict, but more in the sense that they were seekers of truth. And they created mystery schools from these, having sent off people to learn from all of these different modalities and coming together, which for me really resonates because I do really think that that's who Christ was. I think Yeshua was a man who wanted to bridge the gap between all,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it gives you such an interesting perspective, because if she could live to be 600, then that skull that's sitting in France in I forget where it is, a cathedral, I believe, could legitimately be Mary Magdalene's skull. And there are
Yeah.
also, I think, ideas that they went to the UK at some point as well. And maybe like just where they ended up was France.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what I read in the book, which is very similar to what you said. So once Jesus was killed and crucified, she was the first one to see his soul transcended. And he was the one, and he would appear to her often and often, and he was the one who had her flee with 7 other female apostles. So it was a group of 8 women that fled and that had to go through a very long journey to go to what was called back then Gaul, Gaul, which is the south of France. And the reason why Yeshua sent them there, and she mentions that throughout the whole journey, Yeshua kept appearing to her and the apostles, and that was like her way to stay in touch with him and to be guided with him. And then she was also supported by her mother financially. It was just little miracles that were happening of like people that they met, sailors that took them on boats and always kept them safe because they were traveling with Yeshua's spirit, basically. So,
Yeah.
and they were sent to the south of France because it was where I'm not sure if they call them Gentiles as well in the book, but anyway, the people there, they did not have just like on God. They have like they served multiple deities, but they were all connected to nature. Like their connection to God was through nature, and like they had different gods, like let's say like that, through nature. Yeshua said that those were the people who would understand the most their teachings, because they were also like on missions. Like they were also continuing spreading what Yeshua had started, the teachings that was started. And she was pregnant in this whole journey. She was pregnant with a daughter that was birthed. She was given birth in France, and her name was Sarai, I think. Let me see. I have it here.
Moving
And
into the Da Vinci Code, and I forget what that book is called, The Woman with the Alabaster Jar Territory. I can't remember offhand, but I think they actually adopt children in the their book. I don't know that I have any. I don't know that my soul fully resonates with either of the. Like, I don't know which one is basically what I'm saying. But interestingly enough, the same thing in that book around the idea that Christ as a transcended soul, as a light body, does appear over and over again. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, she gave birth to this daughter, and Yeshua kept appearing to them and guiding them in this like ministry in this that they were through France, and maybe they did go. I mean, I'm
Mm,
still like halfway through the book, so I don't know what happens after, but maybe they did go to the UK after. Her name was, yeah, Sarah, like
Sarah.
Sarah, but Sarah with like an apostrophe between the A and the R.
Mm,
Super interesting,
Sarah.
actually.
Huh.
Super interesting. I do believe somehow that, I don't know, this resonates with me, that she was pregnant with his daughter, and which means that
His
there's a
bloodline is still
lineage.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
right?
mean, not to be controversial, but if we all came from Adam and Eve, we are all from the same bloodline.
Yeah, but that's for another episode. We can talk about the whole creation, which I think is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I tr
so they had to escape. They had to escape because of the situation back in well, it wasn't Israel back then, right? It was Judea.
They are from Palestine in this book.
Yeah, they also mention Palestine here, actually. But Judea is what, like, maybe the bigger area, I guess, like
Yeah.
that encompasses like different countries, like Palestine. I don't know.
Mhm. We're
Yeah,
definitely not
as I said at the
historians.
beginning, we're not historians, we're not scholars. We're just sharing here the things that we've learned, the things that we feel from just being in her energy. Have you ever felt her energy at any point in your journey?
At the very beginning, that's where I felt very, very connected with her. I don't know what I can't remember offhand what happened, but there was something that happened that I was like, "Oh my." There was a point where I was like, "Is, like, Mary Magdalene trying to work through me? Like, what's going on?" And then it got me down the rabbit hole of just, like, allowing myself to connect to that divine feminine energy. And also, like, I mean, at that point, I was in my beginning journey to connect with like the rituals of it, right? Like, when you think about, I said, let's talk about magic. So let's going into the magic. When I started connecting to the ritualization of it, like, I don't think that I would have seen Yeshua and felt that eternal love had I not been doing these rituals. So I really felt at the beginning that I was being guided by Mary Magdalene to do like this thing and the ritual and like the candles. And like I was like blessing myself and like literally doing like Magdalene priestess. I don't know if you've ever heard of the idea that there's this like Magdalene lineage still.
Yeah.
This Magdalene priestess energy, and it's like sacred priestesses of the ancient womb, right? So that's very much like a hero, healer, anointer. So I
Mm-hmm.
talked about it and kind of put it in the ways of how we would see it now, which is like a little glamour magic-y, where we're anointing feet and where it's like transmutation, witchcraft, and like bringing back devotion and magic into your connection with the divine. And I don't think that had I not felt that connection to her and not like out of nowhere, and I wasn't even like truly naming it as that until afterwards, until after it connected. But I have no doubt that that was her leading me to do these things that made no sense. But my soul was like, just do it. And here
And
we
what kind
are.
of rituals were you doing?
I was doing like instead of, well, not instead of, because I was still going to church at that point, but I would do like my own ritual after in the evening typically, and I would like light the candle. I would do like Sabbath rituals, right? Like I would light the candle, I would say a prayer, I would bless, I would like do a blessing over my food, and I would eat whatever I was having, like a cookie or a cracker or a piece of bread. Um, and I would journal in the candlelight, and I would do energy healing on myself, and then I would close the practice. Like I would anoint, commune, and journal with myself really, and focus on like the energy healing aspects of it as well. And then I saw Jesus. So something was guiding me, and I truly do think with all of my heart, all of my soul, that it was her. I just didn't have a
Yeah.
name for it at the time.
Yeah, totally. Maybe that's something we could do in one of our challenges in
Yes.
Threshold, to like channel her energy and do like a 7-day challenge and see what each of us experience. I think that would be
Yeah.
pretty powerful. For me, it's really interesting because I've always felt this, I've always been drawn to feminine power. And I've always
Mm.
felt this admiration for powerful women who stand up for themselves. In the business context, I've always felt huge admiration for women that build powerful businesses and that are independent, that are in some way rebellious in from like the traditional way of thinking that
Mm.
women who should submit to their husbands and that they should not speak in church, all that stuff that I
Mhm.
never resonated with that. I always felt as drawn to that feminine power, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I've always suppressed my own feminine energy and my own feminine power, which is that beautiful
Yes.
duality. Like my soul always called me to something, but then my ego just kept me back.
It's like, "Nope, don't
And
do it."
yeah, so I have a lot of girlfriends who are these like powerful women with like huge personalities and driven, and
Mm.
I've always been drawn to those types of women, and that is
Mhm.
how Mary Magdalene is described in this book and in many others. Like even in her gospel, like she was a leader. She was like not just
Yes.
random. She was a leader, and she was
Yeah.
rebellious, but she was powerful. She was wise. She would have
Mhm.
been an incredible businesswoman. This in this era.
She would've for sure.
But yeah, now that I think about it, now that I look in retrospective, I see that's her energy that was always calling my soul. That was my divine spark that was planted by Sophia from the moment my soul
Mm.
was thrown into this mat game. That's why also when I started watching The Chosen, she was my favorite character. She was my favorite character from the very beginning.
Did you watch Chosen before this last awakening, or was it after?
Therefore,
So I feel like it was like a little
before.
bit of initiation maybe.
Yeah, yeah. My two I mean, everyone loved Jesus in that show, and he does like that. The actor does such a great embodiment of Yeshua.
Mhm.
The thing about this show is that it made me love Jesus, and it made me really understand who Jesus
Mm.
was and his
Yeah.
mission and his values. So it's beautiful. If you haven't watched it, taking away all the doctrine and all the things that might not resonate, like the story that they tell is beautiful. But then also my other character was Mary Magdalene, and I was just
Yeah.
I was drawn to her, and I like that she was giving more of like an important role in the whole mission, and that there's also
Mhm.
some women apostles in the show. There's
Oh, wow.
two more women. There's a black woman from she was African, I can't remember from where, and then there is another one who was actually engaged to Thomas, but she was killed.
Oh.
In this book, Mary Magdalene says that Thomas was the closest apostle to her because he was what we would call in these times
Mm.
an empath, and that he
Mm.
really
Mm.
expressed his feelings, and that
Mhm.
so. But yeah, anyways, yeah, for me, it's been like the feminine, the divine feminine has always been calling me, but I've always tried to suppress it until now that I've understood that it's nothing to be ashamed of as a man to like because it's not
Yeah.
about being feminine. It's about having that polarity within you, right? The masculine and the feminine, they're both necessary. That's why the
Mhm.
Christo Sophia union was so powerful. That's why Jesus and
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene
And
or
Mary.
Miriam of Magdala, as you said, they were like born on the same day. It was
Yeah.
like meant to be.
Yeah, they were literal mirrors, like, that's how it's described in that book. They were literal mirrors of each other and born on that day, and it's so yeah, like, goosebumps. I definitely think that it's like that twin flame energy, and she was a feisty woman, like, she was a feisty kid in that book, as it sounds like she was in the one that you read as well. She was feisty. But then, like, through that, like, those were her demons, if you will, was, like, having to harness this power that was within her. And I see it, like,
Yeah.
if we're being my 4-year-old, like, that girl is feisty as shit, and she's got, like, so much power and emotion, and I'm like, "How do I, like, help her harness this? Because she's gonna be a force to be reckoned with, and I refuse to be the kind of mother that suppresses that."
Yeah. And if you think about it, like going back 2,000 years ago, any woman that was like that, of course, she would have been said that she was possessed by demons, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
I
very
say it to
interesting.
my 4-year-old sometimes too, I think she's possessed.
But I mean, this is a whole other topic, demons, that we will definitely talk about in another episode.
Yes.
But I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to chat about. Just our perspectives on who she was, what we've learned. I love the questions from Miranda.
Mm.
For anyone listening or watching, our Threshold members, which is our Threshold, is our private community where we do weekly gatherings and we study teachings like Mary, the Gospel of Mary, and other canonical books, books, and we do full moon and new moon rituals and challenges. One of the perks is that they get invited to join us in these podcast recordings and they get to interact with us in real time. So I think that's amazing because I've never seen a podcast where people are interacting in real time with the hosts. So it's
It's
super
very
cool.
fun.
Yeah, it really is. But is there anything else you wanted to share about Mary Magdalene, why she matters now? Any personal encounter, any symbols that you've discovered?
Interestingly, not in, I don't even know. When I remember when I have this ring that's not my wedding ring. I don't even wear my wedding ring anymore. It has a moonstone on it, which is like intuition, and the garnet, which is like this more earthy masculine kind of. And that I bought it when this first started happening, and it was like this merging of like the intuitive feminine and then that like masculine energy. And I feel like it's really helped me to center myself. But also, I just realized, I don't know that you're going to want to put this in here, but I realized what I was going to say earlier around Satan's little season. And I had a realization a while back around the fact that even if we were like right now, we're living in a distorted, separated mind, right? So if you look at the book of Revelation being a situation where the devil's locked up for 1,000 years and then has to be let go because we have free will, right? We move in ebbs and flows of creation where we're divinely flowing with God and we're like literally everything is amazing and everything is the Garden of Eden. And then we move out of these out into these distorted, separate times. In this moment in time where we are separate, if we look back on history, I don't even think we could see if there was a moment where we were perfectly held. Our distorted glasses right now on our eyes would not be able to see it. So we're so focused on the fact that we don't think that unity is like possible unless we die because we can't even physically see the remnants of it here. But I have no doubt that it's happened before. I have no doubt that we've been here in bliss. And then, that seed of deception comes in. So today and right now, what's rising is that remembrance that is that Mary Magdalene. It is that Sophia energy. And right now, what is happening is we're rising into our remembrance. And it's the beginning of remembering that union because we've lived so far in the distortion. And so, yeah, I just invite you to lean into all of those, lean into Christ through the body, which is, the little intuition, which is my 4-year-old saying God lives in her belly and God lives in my belly too. I bet you God doesn't live up here where you're making all your decisions. God lives somewhere in your body, giving you little nudges. Listen to those. Those ones will guide you to your highest, most connected version of yourself, that Magdalene energy.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Do we want to give a closing prayer before we go?
Hey, yes, you prepare. I just
Yes.
want to
Thank you
say
for
to
those
her,
who came in the audience. Okay. So,
yes.
dear Heavenly Mother, we hope this conversation has opened something soft and ancient in us. The remembrance of Mary Magdalene. Let's hope it awakened the parts of us that know truth without needing, without any permission, that see with the eyes of the heart and that trust the wisdom of the soul. May the feminine and masculine within us return to harmony. May every listener feel guided, protected, held as they walk their own path of awakening. We honor the teachers who walked before us, the mysteries that guide us, and the light that reveals itself in the quiet. May grace surround us, may love lead us, may truth unfold in its perfect time, and may all we remember who we are. Amen.
And so it is.
So it is. Well, thank you so
Beautiful.
much. Beautiful. I think we should definitely do another episode on Mary Magdalene, but with a guest who's actually maybe a
Yes.
scholar or, and just
That has
really dig
historical
into
facts. Yes.
exactly. And thank you so much for listening. If you're new to the podcast, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel as well. Share it with a friend, leave us a comment, help us spread this beautiful mission of helping souls remember their divinity and their oneness with God. And we'll
Yes.
see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Beautiful. Bye.